I applied for a mortgage. The loan officer said, we can't pre-approve you. You defaulted on a $148,000 SBA loan. I said, what SBA loan? My husband said it was free money, meant for us. He filed an EIDL in my name. I'm 30F, he's 33M. We live in Atlanta, on the east side near Kirkwood. Shotgun house with a sagging porch swing, creaky hardwoods, and a stoop I've painted 3 times because the pollen wins every spring. I'm a grant writer at a nonprofit clinic. He's a contractor who calls himself a small business owner and has 4 different hats in his truck to prove it. We've rented all 5 years we've been together. This winter, my mom slipped me $10,000 she'd been saving for when you do the grown-up papers. Rates weren't great, but rents weren't either. We met with the lender at a credit union in Decatur and brought our little binder, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, a letter from my boss that said I wasn't going anywhere. The loan officer, a woman with a coffee mug that said "Mortgage Mom," typed, nodded, smiled, and then stopped smiling. I'm so sorry, she said, turning her screen. We can't move forward. You're in default on an SBA EIDL Economic Injury Disaster Loan, 148,300. The Treasury Offset Program placed a hold, and your credit shows a delinquent business line. I said the only thing I could think of, I work for a clinic. She clicked. The business name on the loan is Lux Maven Studio, LLC. Owner, S., my last name. Business address, a UPS store on Moreland. I laughed. I've never owned a business. I don't know how to do hair. That's not me, I said. We left with a sheet of paper with SBA Disaster Assistance Borrower Services circled and a business card with identity theft written on the back. I sat in the car and stared at the steering wheel and felt my body do that hollow fireworks feeling I get when I know the next few months are going to be noise. At home, my husband David was unloading a pallet of vinyl plank flooring from his truck like a man in a commercial. I dropped the paper on the hood. What is this? I asked. He looked at it. He looked at me. He did the mouth thing of someone choosing which lie to tell. Okay, he said, hands up, almost a laugh. I can explain? Explain. It's the COVID thing, he said. The SBA loans. Everyone did it. Free money to keep businesses afloat. I set one up for you, for us, because your credit was clean. For my hair salon, I said to the air reading Lux Maven Studio out loud. He winced. It needed a NAICS code, he said. I clicked personal care services. It was 2020. We were drowning. Jobs dried up. I had to keep the crew on. We paid rent with it. We paid your student loan. It was survival. How much? First $49,000, he said. Then the supplemental. They raised the cap. It was like a line, all legit. Contracts. It wasn't like I bought a boat. What did you buy? I asked, because I know him. He did the face. Truck. Tools. Paid off Chase. Put some into crypto when Matt said it was the dip. It's not all gone. The balance said otherwise. My stomach fell through my shoes. Small Atlanta sentence. I drove to the varsity and ate a chili dog in my car like a person whose body needed salt more than it needed oxygen. I called the SBA number. 40 minutes of hold music and a sweet woman named Carol told me we can't discuss details without the borrower. I said, I am the borrower. She asked security questions I didn't know the answer to. What is your business address? How many employees? What is your monthly revenue? And I said the most humiliating sentence of my adult life. My husband committed identity theft. Ma'am, Carol said gently, in the voice of people who tell you your cat is gone, you'll need to file an identity theft report with the police and send us a signed affidavit. We'll refer your case to SBA OIG, Office of Inspector General. The loan will still be in default while we review. My tax refund was next, and I suddenly saw it being sucked into the Treasury offset program like a coin into a greedy machine. I filed a police report with APD's white-collar unit. The officer took down fraudulent SBA loan and raised his eyebrows like 2020 is still here. He asked, "You want to press charges?" And I said, "I want my name back," which is not the same thing, but feels like it. I froze my credit. I put alerts on everything with a 3-letter acronym. I called my mom and told her we wouldn't be getting a house. She said she never liked David and then apologized and brought over a casserole we didn't eat. David slept on the couch. His mother called to say he did what he had to do for his family, as if my social is a blanket he borrowed and meant to put back later. I said he did it to his family and hung up because there is a point where other people's moms lose their rights. Updates. Update 1 week later, the SBA OIG sent me an email. "We received your referral. An agent will contact you." It had capital letters that made me feel like my life had crawled into a 4-letter alphabet soup. Treasury mailed me a letter that said intent to offset. Any federal payments in my name, tax refund, possible future Social Security would be applied to the debt. There was a paragraph about hardship that read like satire. I hired a lawyer, not a mortgage guy, white-collar, criminal, and administrative counsel. Her name is Dana. She looks like she's built out of bicycle rides and courtrooms. She said, "You did a thing you do. You wrote a grant in your sleep for him. Now we write one for you." She drafted a packet for SBA police report, my W-2s going back 5 years, a letter from my employer, a copy of my lease, a notarized statement that I have never owned Lux Maven Studio, screenshots of his emails that I pulled from the joint laptop, application confirmations, dear borrower notices that he had bundled into a folder marked COVID stuff. She told me 2 things I didn't want to know. 1, the loan was dispersed to a bank account in my name. He had needed me to open a business checking when we were stuck at home. I thought it was for his contracting. I signed things on the porch. 2, some of the money paid our rent and my student loan. Benefit to household is a phrase prosecutors like. "Do I go to jail for his hustle?" I asked. "No," she said, "but we don't play cute. We cooperate." An SBA OIG agent named Marshall called me. He had a warm voice and an email signature that said Southeastern Region. He asked permission to record. He asked me to walk him through 2020. He asked me if we had a salon. I laughed, crying, and told him I don't even own a curling iron. He asked if I'd be willing to testify if it came to that. I said yes and hung up and threw up in my sink. I told David an agent had called. He said, "I'll talk to him," like this was his committee. I said, "You will not get a lawyer." Small Atlanta sentence. I took the Beltline to Krog and watched a kid eat ice cream while wearing it, and for 15 minutes I felt like the whole world was stickier and less dangerous than my living room. Update 2, 3 weeks later, the SBA froze the loan. The default letter now said, "Under review due to alleged identity theft, Treasury paused the offset for 60 days. OIG had me send bank statements with a highlighter trail, deposit dates, transfers to our joint checking, Zelle payments to his crew, a weird $6,000 cashier's check to North Fulton Dodge, the truck, a wire to Coinbase that made me want to strangle a 2021 version of him." David retained a lawyer after I gave him 3 names and said, "Pick one." His lawyer, a man who smelled like expensive paper, told him to shut up. At least someone in our house understood consent. He sent me an email titled Accounting. He tried to make pie charts of household benefit and business benefit. He put my student loan payment in the household benefit and called it helping. I wrote stolen money next to it with a Sharpie and taped it to the fridge as a reminder that the words we use matter. Update 3, 5 weeks later, someone from the IRS fraud unit called. "We see a Schedule C for Lux Maven Studio on your 2020 return," she said. "It's being examined." David had TurboTaxed that into existence in 2021 while I nursed a head cold and watched Bridgerton. He claimed supplies and rent, our actual rent. We filed jointly. Dana got on the call and told the agent we were cooperating. The agent was not mean. She was also not there to be my therapist. "If we determine there's fraud, we'll adjust," she said. "You may owe taxes back. If the OIG case results in restitution, it will offset." I pretended to understand how one alphabet soup ladles into another. I moved into my friend Taylor's spare room in Cabbagetown with my dog and 2 plants that did not deserve this. I told David to get his own place. He cried on the porch like a boy who finally met the principal. He said, "I'll fix it." I said, "You don't get to be the fixer anymore. You broke my name." His mother dropped off a bag of empanadas and left a note that said, "Family is forever." I left them on the porch for the possums. Update 4, 2 months later, OIG agent Marshall set up interviews. Me, in a conference room in a federal building with a bad view and good coffee. Him, voluntarily, with counsel, because otherwise they can subpoena. He confessed, mostly. He admitted he filled out the application using my info, attached a copy of my driver's license, faked a lease for the UPS store suite, had me open a business account for his checks, then set up an SBA portal and made payments until he didn't, then ignored emails because they made him sweat. He said he kept 3 guys on his crew working because their wives were pregnant and their unemployment was messed up. He said he used the rest to pay life. He said he bought the truck because his died. He tried to tell a story where he was Robin Hood and I was Marion and he was sorry, but have you met pandemics? They thanked him for his honesty, then asked for his tax returns and bank statements and 18 other things that would paper the reason he needed a lawyer. SSA flagged my number 4 misuse, blue folder number 4. I won a beautiful new binder and a permanent case file in a building somewhere. Small Atlanta sentence. I got lemon pepper wings from JR Crickets, sat on my stoop with a roll of paper towels, and let the grease and the sun make me feel human. Update 5, 3 months later. The SBA sent a letter. We have removed the alleged identity theft victim from the loan documents. The borrower of record will be updated. They didn't name him because that's not how forms work. They did remove me. Treasury sent me a second letter, offset suspended. I cried into an envelope like a lunatic. The IRS adjusted our 2020 return. We owed $1,800. Dana negotiated payment. "Think of it as you are told to get out of the worst timeline," she said. I sent the check and wrote toll on it and felt petty and correct. David's lawyer called Dana. The U.S. Attorney's Office was considering charges wire fraud. EIDL is electronic identity theft, false statements to SBA. Because the amount was above the magical numbers and because OIG had been told to make examples, they wanted something. We asked about pretrial diversion. They said maybe. He had no record and my cooperation mattered. We mediated our life. Separation agreement. He's liable for any restitution, taxes, or penalties. If any debt tries to find me, he indemnifies. Beautiful word. He owes me $500 a month for 2 years as a very small nod to the time I spent on hold. He signs a stipulation that he will never, ever open anything in my name again or near my name, and if he does, it triggers a $50,000 liquidated damages clause, and I will take his truck in the night. Update 6, 6 months later, Charges came. One count, false statements to SBA. One count, aggravated identity theft, mandatory minimum 2 years. His lawyer knocked on the negotiated diversion door so hard I could hear it.
They offered plea to false statements, identity theft count dismissed, 18 months of probation, $41,000 restitution, the portion the government couldn't recover, 100 hours community service. He took it because he is not fully hopeless.
We went to. The judge looked like someone's tired uncle. David wore a suit that didn't fit. I spoke at sentencing because I wanted the room to hear a woman say, "He did this to me, not for me." I didn't cry. He cried. The judge said the government had made examples of people and now the book had a lot of dog ears. He sentenced him to probation with all the financial strings attached. I went outside and sat on a concrete planter and felt nothing for a while, which is better than rage. Small Atlantans, I parked at Spiller Park, ordered a cappuccino, and watched a toddler throw blueberries on the floor. The barista didn't even flinch. Update 7. 9 months later, I found a one-bedroom condo in Clarkston that I could afford on my little nonprofit salary because the world is occasionally merciful if you're willing to redo a bathroom. My mother and 3 aunties came over with plants and brooms like a coven. We ate pizza on the floor and named the cockroach in the hallway Carl. I wrote a check to hire a contractor who is not David and let a stranger tell me my subfloor was in fact trying to kill me slowly. I wrote blessed on the studs like a joke and then cried and then laughed. David sends his $500 on the first of the month like a rent check. He sent a photo of him doing community service at a food pantry like it was PR. I liked the photo and moved on. I'm not a museum for his rehabilitation. I started dating. Slowly. A nurse named Elijah who makes casseroles and understands busy seasons and doesn't mind that my idea of clubbing is a book club. He knows the story. He didn't do the face that men do when they think they're being supportive by being shocked. He said, "That sucks, and do you want to go to the botanical garden and look at plants?" I said yes. Update 8, 1 year later, divorce final. Short hearing, stamps, irreconcilable, me walking out into a day that didn't feel different and then felt different. Dana brought me a cookie and called me a client success story, and we laughed at how hideous that phrase is and also how I wanted to frame it. SBA OIG sent me a letter, case closed, and a tiny lapel pin I will never wear but put in my top drawer like a talisman. IRS cleared their under-exam flag. Treasury stopped sending letters that smelled like mildew. I took a solo trip to Tybee with my dog. We sat on a beach and I didn't think about acronyms for an hour. I ate shrimp and grits and slept with the windows open because the world was not on fire for one whole day. Update 9, 18 months later, if you are holding a letter that says EIDL or SBA or Treasury offset and your stomach is where your shoes are, I am so sorry. Here's the map I wish I'd had. File a police report. It feels weird. Do it anyway. It flips a switch with SBA. Hire a lawyer who knows this soup. Administrative plus criminal is a specific lane. A consult is cheaper than a disaster. Call SBA Disaster Assistance and ask for identity theft packet. Then send it. Affidavit, police report, your W-2S, your lease, photos of you not having a salon. Freeze your credit. All 3 bureaus. Put a fraud alert on your SSN. If a lender calls, answer, "No, that isn't me." Treasury offset stops when SBA says the word. Get SBA to say the word. Call. Fax. Yes, fax. IRS has its own head. If a fake Schedule C was filed, ask for an identity theft case on your transcript. It will take months. Breathe. Separate your life from his. Literally, bank accounts, leases, the drawer where you keep your passport. Metaphorically, he cannot be the fixer if he broke your name. Let professionals do that. Eat something salty in your car, preferably under a tree. Drink water. Walk the belt line. Hug the auntie who brings too many plants. Give the possums the empanadas. Small Georgia sentence. I stood on the Jackson Street Bridge with a lukewarm coffee, watched traffic snake up and down the connector, and for one full song, I didn't think about loans or letters, just the skyline and the way this city keeps learning and unlearning how to be itself. Final tiny note. People bend the word help around all kinds of theft. They love to say for us while running you through a shredder. Here's my rule now. Help has consent. Love has consent. Forms definitely have consent.